Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, so today we're going to go over a technique that narcissists use on you. It's probably two pieces technically that are the same thing. And then I'm going to give you a get out of jail card because you were tricked. This is something that I learned from someone in my family, and the first time they said it, or the first time I was made aware of it, I really didn't understand what it was or what was going on. So, when I was a kid, I grew up in a very, very narcissistic family, and I was what they called the black sheep. In other words, I was the one they blamed for everything. They told my neighbors, oh, he's bad, it's him. It's a distraction technique to take the blame off of who it really belonged to, and it was them. So there was a lot of mind games that were being played when I was a little kid. In fact, my whole life dealing with my family. And there was one that how do I say this? It's like somebody pointed it out to me, but I didn't quite get it yet. So when I was a kid, we lived in Wisconsin for a short period of time. Well, actually about 6 years, so not quite a short period of time. But so eventually, for some reason, my aunt had flown out to live with us, and I think she stayed with us for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. So in the beginning, she was a solid person. She was very good to me. She was kind. She was just a good person. She was very loving, and she's definitely an empath for sure. So shortly, not too much longer, maybe it was 3 weeks, maybe it was a month, maybe it was 3 months, but eventually she just became very, very cold towards me, like very cold. And as a kid, I was just like, like what's going on? And so she never told me, she never said nothing, and that's kind of part of the whole narcissistic system. Nobody communicates. No one. They just like, you're bad. And it wasn't until I started going to Tony Robbins seminars, gaining my confidence, and going to NLP trainings and learning to ask questions like, what did I do? What specifically? There's a series of questions I'll ask. And it really helps to clarify things. And they're like, oh, well, I was in my 30s, like 31, and I finally confronted my brother, like, well, you did this, or you really upset mom. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you guys have been saying this for decades. What did I do? And his answer was, well, Now, again, because I've been to personal development trainings, NLP, and Tony Robbins trainings, I looked at him and I said, no, I don't know. What specifically did I do? Now, this is one of the questions you learn in NLP. And what it does, it's like you're calling them on their shit in a way to where they have to specify. Now, we're sitting in a restaurant. He looked at me, and he looked down, looked at me, and I'm waiting, like what is it? And he just goes, well, and I'm like, no, I legitimately was like, I don't know, and I wanted to know so I could stop doing whatever it was that I was doing that was upsetting my mom so much. So I'm realizing he has no answer. Like, he's literally, like, 2 minutes have gone by. I go, okay, so if I've done, and here's the thing, was all these horrible things all these years, you can't think of one? Not one? And then he says, well, you almost died. Well, my appendix had burst about 4 or 5 years before that, maybe a little more. And I had to go to the hospital and have internal surgery. And it was really bad, actually. I ended up staying in the hospital for 22 days. He goes, you almost died when your appendix burst. And I literally blurted out, well, forgive me, literally, and I said that, literally, for almost dying. Yeah. It wasn't like I jumped off a cliff. It wasn't like I did some dangerous thing that made my mom worry. It wasn't like I was playing some it was just like I literally just ate dinner, and then after a while, all of a sudden my stomach started hurting. Like, whoa, what's going on? And so another reason he would say, well, you got good grades, and that really upset mom. I'm like, now at this point, I was like, what? Like, I didn't see, because I didn't really know what narcissist abuse. I'm like, why are we getting good grades upset mom? Like, his answers were just insane. But they're all like that. Then he said, well, you were good in sports and you wanted everything you did. Again, I'm looking at him like, well, that would make my mom proud. Again, I'm just looking at him like, what? Like, it makes sense now because they realize like narcissists are extremely jealous, even towards their own children. So as usual, these are all non-answers. Because in actuality, you're the white sheep. You're a good person. You always have been. And they're trying to sling their blame and their shame onto you. They're trying to sling their shame of themselves and what they did wrong onto you because they can't even face it. So their goal is to try to make you look bad in front of other people. And here's one of the techniques. So my aunt lived with us for a long time, 1.5 years, 2 years-ish. I don't remember exactly how long. And I didn't know what was going on. Nobody told me. I had no idea. All I know is like for some reason, my aunt didn't like me anymore and was very angry at me. And every time I came in the room, she just looked at me like with this disgust, this hate. So it just made me feel even worse. And I just thought there's got to be something wrong with me, but nobody will tell me what I'm doing wrong. But that's gaslighting. They don't want you to know because if they don't tell you and they leave it vague and abstract and you spin and spin and spin, you're like, well, what did I do? What did I do? And that's what they're doing. They want you to get in your head to think. So you get stuck in your logical thinking brain. It's all part of the game. So eventually, after my aunt went home, I think it was another year. I don't remember how long it was, but a year or two later, it was probably about, it was about a little over a year later. We had moved back to California. Now my brother had moved, went with my aunt. I don't know if he went right when she went or a couple months later, but eventually he went to California and he lived with them for 1 year. So then we moved out there, and before we found a home, we lived with my aunt and my uncle where my brother was living. So what was happening was we kind of settled in for about, I don't know if it was 3 weeks or a month or two or whatever, but we had been there for a while, and my little brother started doing his games, and one day he would throw like a little rock at my head from behind when I was talking to one of my new friends out in front on the lawn. And he did it again. It hit me really hard. I was like, ow! And I didn't even say anything. I didn't say stop, nothing, because that's just the way it was. And I remember my brother just grinning from ear to ear. And my friend Marlon was like, dude, why don't you kick his ass? I'm like, well, I'm not allowed. So then he picked up a bigger rock and he hucked it at me and it cut my head open. And I'm like, and then my friend Marlon goes, stop it. And then my Uncle Don had heard this, and he had yelled out and told my brother Joey, like, you better knock it off. And I don't remember the word he used, but or else or something. And essentially meant, or you're going to get a whipping. Now, I didn't think that was actually going to happen because my whole life I was always hit, punched, kicked, stabbed, hit with baseball bats, and nobody got punished for nothing. Now, mind you, I'm not even talking to my brother Joey. He's standing behind me about 5 feet doing this, okay? So about 30 seconds or a minute goes by, and he does it again. He gets a bigger rock, and he throws it at me, and it hits me. And now my Uncle Don was watching out the window and saw this, and he comes running out the door with the belt in hand, grabs my brother, yanks him in the house, pulls him in, and just starts wailing on him. Now that was a first. Nobody had ever been punished for hurting me. Now here's the deal. My brother Joey never, ever messed with me from that point forward while we lived there. So we lived there for about, I think it was about 2 years if I remember right. And it was kind of a nice get out of jail card. It was like, what's the word? Like I wasn't getting knocked around every fucking day. And remember, I was not allowed to punch back or hit back or throw a rock back, or then I would get the shit kicked out of me. So that's the way it was. So I had a 2-year reprieve, we'll call it, or approximately 2-year reprieve. And then what happened was shortly after this incident, and I mean, I'm talking, it might have even been later that night, evening after dinner, but it could have been a week or month later. But shortly after, my aunt had literally physically grabbed my arm and pulled me aside and said, Michael, I need to talk to you. And I'm thinking, oh shit, I must have done something wrong. Have no idea, but that's how it usually works. I kick the shit out of you, and you're sitting there going, and literally as a kid I would used to cry out to my mom, what did I do? What did I do? You know what you did. And that is an absolute narcissistic thing, to whip your child and not tell them what they did, and then tell them, you know what you did. Well, that is the gaslighting of all gaslighting. I don't remember if we went to the front yard or there was a park like literally about half block down. We might have went to the park, but she had pulled me aside and said, hey, I owe you an apology. Now, I was looking at her like, uh-oh, something's coming. It's going to be bad. Because we all know that's not a reality. Nobody apologized to me for kicking the shit out of me, ever. So I'm kind of being funny, because it really was a huge thing, and I looked at her, I'm like, well, for what? You gotta understand, this was like the first time any human being had ever apologized for me for anything, and I'm looking at her like, you never did anything to me. In fact, I think I even said that, and she goes, no. She goes, do you remember when we lived in Wisconsin? I'm like, yeah. She goes, do you remember when I just was kind of cold to you and I just stopped talking to you? I'm like, oh yeah, I very much remember that. But in my mind, she didn't actually do something. She didn't hurt me. She didn't attack me. She didn't, nothing. So she was the first person in my life. She unveiled something that I don't think even she had a clue of what she was unveiling. It was the first step towards beginning the journey of understanding narcissist abuse. So she had said, look, when you were a little kid, everybody, from your mother, your older sister, Joey, your brother Gary, Amber, everyone, all they did was tell me how you were this horrible person, how you did all these horrible things, and on and on and on. And I'm like, but I didn't. And I'm on the verge of, but I didn't do anything. And she's like, no, Michael, I understand. I know. She goes, I think I even said, did you ever see me do any of these things? And she's like, no. She goes, and I was always at the house. And she goes, but back then, I didn't really think about that. See, that's kind of a hard thing that a lot of people don't do. Okay, like a good example is I had friends in high school where we went to wrestling tournaments every weekend for 5 months or 6 months. We were wrestling every day in practice for 2.5 hours. We had classes together. We went to lunch together. We went to parties together. We went fishing together. And these people never, ever, 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 ever met my family. Not once. We were on the football team together. So we were not only on the wrestling team, but football team. We were in practice from summer all the way to almost Christmas until we started wrestling season. Then we were in that almost all the way till the end of the school year. And then during summer, we worked together. We played together. We fished together. But then lo and behold, after I graduated, when I moved out of town, years later, my mother comes in the picture. And here's the deal. They never even met her. They have no idea who this woman is. And she introduces herself and says, oh, Michael's a horrible monster. He's monstrous. He's bad. Next thing you know, people that I had known for years who had interacted with me on a daily, I don't mean just Monday through Friday in school, but I'm talking on weekends. Tournaments lasted 2 days. We would sleep in hotels together. They knew me. My family didn't know me. I spent way less time with my family than I did my coaches and my teammates and their families that came to the tournaments. My mom, I think, went to one tournament one time for half and just left. When my best friend died, even though that we used to live at my Aunt Maureen's, the same aunt, about literally like a short end of the block and then around the corner and 4 houses up, nobody had ever met my mom. And yet I went to my friend Martin's house every day before school to go. I would eat over there, have breakfast, and then we would get in his sister's car and we would all go to school together. She showed up years later, a year and a half later when he died, and showed up at the house when everybody was there for the family gathering, the friends and the dinner and, all that stuff. And everyone's talking, just storms in like she's the queen of the world and her child died. And everyone's like, who's that woman? Who's that? Like everyone finally goes, oh, I think that's Mike Kollin's mom. Nobody knew her. But the moment she spoke, God has spoken. They just blindly believed her. And no one ever told me. All I know is I got dirty looks all the time and nobody would talk to me. And some people are like, well, you're a bad person. I'm like, what are you talking about? You weren't like this towards me in high school. Like, what happened? I haven't seen you in 3 years or 5 years. Like, what's going on? Nobody would tell me. And it's the same thing with my aunt. In Wisconsin, she never said, hey, here's what's going on and here's why I've turned on you. Like, nothing. Nobody gave me an ounce of morsel of nothing. And that's what you went through. So I learned these are not my friends. And I realized they were probably flying monkeys the whole time. I just didn't know it. So when I looked at them as, oh, well, they're either narcissists or flying monkeys, I just wrote them off because, again, I tried to talk to these people. I tried to sit down and nobody wanted to talk. So I figured these people are not worth my time. And when I did that, that gave me a sense of freedom. Now let's get to the technique. So my aunt was the one, her and my Uncle Don, who first figured out what was going on. So she said, look, I figured something out that I didn't know when we lived in Wisconsin. I'm like, okay. She goes, you know how Joey moved out here about a little over a year before you guys moved out and lived with us? I'm like, yeah. She goes, well, Joey did to me and Uncle Don what Joey was doing to you. I'm like, okay, what's that? Like, I had no idea what she was talking about. So here's what he would do. She said, Joey would do these little things to really frustrate us and piss us off. I'm like, okay, but he wouldn't do it when the other person was in the same room. In fact, he usually would only do it when the other person was at work or gone at the grocery store or whatever. I'm like, okay. So he might, kind of flick your nose or flick your ear and then maybe the next day pull one strand of hair out, just like little things to irritate you. And then you would say something in kind of in a smart-ass way that would upset you, but it wasn't big enough to where you could actually say something or do something about it. So he would really get you on edge over a period of time, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even a month. And then when that person is in the same room, he would do just some little thing like flick your ear or say some little comment, and you were already at a boiling point and you would lose your shit. And you'd be like, God damn it, that's it. The straw that broke the camel's back. It was the last straw. So she said he had been playing me and your Uncle Don against each other, and for a long time we didn't know what was going on, but we were getting angrier and angrier at each other. Like, why are you treating him like that? He didn't do anything. And it's like he turned us against each other. And I was like, oh, so Uncle Don thought I was just this horrible monster and I hated Joey, and it's like blah 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 blah. And then Joey did it the other way, and now I'm looking at him like, why are you doing that to him? He goes, but because we are husband and wife, we go to bed together, we would talk about stuff, and we started sharing stories, and we realized he was doing the same thing to each of us. So she had said, I realized that's what they were doing to you back in Wisconsin. She goes, I realized like they would do this one little thing and it would upset you so much that I'd be like, like God, like you got anger issues. So in Wisconsin, my aunt was so angry with me, even though she never saw me do anything. She said, so I was in the kitchen, and we had this garage door with a little doggy hole thing in it with a plastic swinging door. The dog could go out. And my older brother came sprinting through the house, running into the kitchen, knocking me out of my chair, and knocked me into that thing, and it cut underneath my back, under my shoulder blade, or whatever you call that. And it cut it pretty deep, and I was crying, and I couldn't get out. I was stuck. And I was sitting there crying for a long time. My aunt came and was like, what are you crying about? And she saw what happened. And she was, what are you crying about? Now, you got to remember, I was about 8 years old or 9 years old. I was a little kid. But that's what narcissists will do. They'll make you even hate a little kid. What you've really got to pay attention to is, what did you see and hear with your own eyes and your own ears? And I don't mean what did someone say to you. What did you hear from that being? What did you see them do? If you're sitting there going, I never saw them do anything. All I know is you walked up and flicked them in the air and they got pissed off. So they're probably pretty pissed off at you, probably for some reason, like you've been effing with them for a long time. So now let's fast forward to when I was about 21, 22 years old. My mom for a whole year had called me every week on Saturday to convince me to leave my dad's house to come move in with her. Because I moved in with my dad when I was about, I think I was 19 or 20. Okay, and I was there for exactly a year. Well, she made me this unbelievable deal where if you move in with me, you can live here for rent free, so you can go to college full time, work a part-time job, save up some money to buy a car, blah blah. I was like, oh yeah, I'm there, because my dream. And she even said, she goes, I know your dream since second grade was to go to college. Like, well, the first day when I woke up, she's like, well, you got to pay rent. And I was like, wait, I thought you said if I moved here, I could go to college full time. She goes, well, you still got to pay. And it was $150. I was like, well, no big deal, you know. But back then, in 1989 or 90 or whatever, you know, that was kind of a lot of money for renting a room. But I really didn't care. I actually felt good about it. So I went and got a job, like right away. I think I actually went to work the third day that I was there. And I already had money saved up from the job I had when I lived with my dad. And so, but then the next month, she goes, hey, we got to talk. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, I got to double your rent. Now, mind you, this place, the rent was $575 for like a 2.5 bedroom. And I'm paying more than half. And she worked full time. She was manager of a restaurant. And her boyfriend was, he was in the union, made not a lot of money, but good money. And here I am paying half the rent. My brother Joey lived there. My sister Amber lived there for free. And I'm thinking like, well, what's going on? Then the next month, she upped it again, another $150. That's another part of the story, but just kind of give you an example of what I was walking into. So watch this. So one day, so my brother Joey I think he was picking on my sister Amber, and he was also doing this to my mom's boyfriend. So he was doing his best to make him look like this horrible monster. And the guy was actually a sweet dude, like a really cool guy. So you know what? I think it was him actually, yeah, because he was a lot bigger than us. And Joey was actually he was about 5'10", 5'11", but really skinny. And we were young. He was probably 19, 20. And Joey would just fuck with him. And for some reason, I think because Joey wasn't trying to make him look bad to me, but make him look bad to my mom. So he was doing all of this stuff in front of me. Like, I was almost always there every time he fucked with him. And one day he flipped out on my brother. God damn it, motherfucker! And just and he ended up going to the bedroom or whatever. And I went up to my brother Joey like, dude, like, why are you messing with him like that? What are you doing? So one thing about narcissists, they love to see people twist. So he knows if this guy punches my brother, he's going to go to jail. My mom's probably going to kick him out. So the guys left there twisting, and narcissists love to watch you twist and turn. It's a form of supply. They get energy from it. It makes them feel good. It's like fuel. So the idiot literally gave me his strategy. He's grinning. He is happy. I mean, he's grinning from ear to ear and just lit up and just full of life. And I'm like, I don't like what, like, and I literally go, what's wrong with you? Why are you messing with him? He goes, don't you get it? I go, get what? He goes, look, here's what you do. What you do is you just kind of flick their ear one time. Well, they're not going to do nothing. I mean, that's not a big deal. It's irritating, but that's what. But then a day later, you flick their nose. I'm like, okay. And then maybe you pull their hair. I'm like, okay. And at this point, they're kind of like, hey, man, knock it off. He goes, and then maybe you put your finger in their food, or you do something to piss them off, to irritate them. And then you might, and he would smack people. He goes, then you smack them. Not too hard, not enough to where they're going to punch you back, but a real good smack to where like, whoa, what the fuck you doing, man? And at this point, they're burning inside. He goes, and inside they're stewing and they're stewing. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, what the hell? He goes, what you do is you test them. I'm like, what do you mean you test them? He goes, well, you find their limit. I'm like, for what? He goes, you find the line that if you go over that line, they're going to blow their lid and they're going to just start smashing shit. They're going to attack you. They're going to punch you. He goes, and you push them and you push them, you poke them, you pull their hair, you do this, you do that, and you stop just before they blow their lid. And I'm like, why would you do that? He goes, because then they can't do anything and they're angry inside and it's building and building and building and there's nothing they can do because you didn't go across their final straw. And then you don't mess with them for a couple days, maybe a week. And then at dinner time sometime, or when mom's there, whoever the person is you're trying to say, hey, they're a bad person, you just do the littlest, like flick a little water in their face, the littlest thing while they're still just about to blow, and they lose their shit. And that's exactly what he did. So the target really was my mom, was to convince her that this guy's bad. And so what happened was she just looked at him. What is wrong with you? Why would you, like, he just flicked water in your face. That's not a big deal, you know. And so I'm watching this unfold and I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Like, this was the sickest game I've ever seen in my life. Number one, if someone's doing this to you and the other people in the group don't see what's going on, or if people turn on you and they won't explain, just walk. There's nothing you can do. They are going to have to learn it the hard way by getting attacked by this narcissist. Because when you leave, guess what? It happens to someone else in the group. And remember, narcissists aren't very smart. They can't fit the pieces of the puzzle together. So they don't realize that other people can. So when he did this to my Aunt Maureen and Uncle Don, my aunt was like, wait a minute, oh my God, that's what he was doing to Michael too. And so that's why they got so pissed off. And they had realized this kid that, okay, here's the deal. The reason why they had to move out was because they felt sorry for him. Because he was, oh, Michael bullies me. Oh, he always picks on me. Oh. And then when he moved in with them, and after a couple months, they realized, like, wait a minute, it's completely the other way around. That enraged them. So number one, walk away. Let these people go. Because when you do that, you're getting out of God's way. Don't try to be nice to them. Don't try to make friends. Like, that's not going to work. The last video explains this. Because vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I promise you. When you let go and step out of the way, that's when God, it's like you're allowing God to finally do his job. I promise you, beyond a doubt of any shadow, I promise you, God's going to step in and start kicking ass. So one thing I want to say is this. A lot of you, especially empaths, are like, oh, I've got to be truthful. I got to tell the truth. No, not when you're dealing with a narcissist. And here's what I mean. Until I really realized this recently, I would have never said what I'm about to say to you. I kind of didn't like the laws in the court and the way it works, like, you know, client, attorney privileges, etc. I was like, well, this guy's like admitting to his attorney, like he did it, and it's like, well, he's guilty, but the attorney's not allowed to say anything. So here's the problem. The court, because of the way things are lined up, it's not even that. It's like the judge, the jury, the lawyers, they didn't get to see this person effing with you for 2 years straight. They weren't there. You don't have video camera, because it's not like they're going to do it in front of other people. It's not like they're going to let you record them while they're doing it. So they're pushing your buttons, okay? So even my own aunt she just turned on me, and she never gave me a day in court. She never once pulled me and says, like, hey, everyone tells me that you did this, and that. Now, if I was smart enough, which I wasn't back then, I am now, I could look my aunt in the eye and say, okay, so let me ask you a question. Name one single time that you saw this with your own eyes. She'd have to go, huh? Actually, never. I go, so all these people are saying all these horrible things, that I've done all these things every day, every week, every month, every year since you've been here, and you haven't seen it once? So just to make it clear, to exonerate my aunt, she ended up being like one of the key catalysts to really help me begin the journey of getting out of this mess. So my aunt, she got tricked, and I'm very aware of that, so I'm not mad at her at all. She actually ended up being one of the best people in my life, for sure. Now on top of it, narcissists know what they're doing. They purposely have been messing with you, screwing with you, doing it when no one else is around, just enough not to make you blow your lid, because they don't want, okay, stop. They don't want you to blow your lid with them. They want you to blow your lid when other people are around, so they have witnesses. This whole thing is a setup. This is why people say always keep your cool, because they're trying to make you blow your lid in front of other people or in front of a judge or jury, or maybe even a camera or something like that, or even on the phone. Like when you're talking to narcissists, just hang up, because they're going to try to piss you off to make you, because they're recording it to make you look bad. But here's the deal. The people that hear that recording or see this happen on a video or in person, that's all they saw. They didn't see the months and months and months and months of them poking you, prodding you, screwing with you, messing with you, playing mind games, and they didn't see it. And I promise you this, if you could take them, like say God came down and took them back to the very first day you met them, and everything, every moment when they messed with you, everyone, including the jury, be like, oh, I see what's really going on. But they don't do that. They don't set it up like that. They don't want you to see that part. So here's the deal. God does see every damn thing they did to piss you off, to upset you, to frustrate you, to get you to that boiling point where you're about to blow, and then they just let you boil, and they purposely don't poke you. They want you to boil because now you're fuck, I can't get them. And then they poke you right in front of other people. God is very aware and very conscious of exactly what's been going on. God saw every single piece. So if you're dealing with a narcissist and you're dealing with some, like maybe school, police, a judge, a lawyer, don't give yourself away. I'm going to tell you right now, I've never said anything like this before because I'm an empath. It's all about being honest, because you think, well, if I'm honest, then they're going to be honest. No, they're never going to be honest. They're never going to tell the truth. You need to protect yourself with everything you've got. You are under attack. This was a setup. You have every right to protect yourself in every way possible. You are under attack. That's why we have the laws set up the way they are. Because the courts, the judges, the attorneys, they know that they're never going to get the whole truth. It's not like every piece was recorded. They're not going to know. They don't know what this person's done to you. This is why you have the right to plead the fifth. This is why you don't have to spill the beans on yourself. You have every right to keep your mouth shut and not tell them anything. And this is why the narcissist does this to you, because they know that you're this empathic, honest, good person, and they know that you're only going to say the part about that makes you look bad. Don't do it. The narcissist isn't going to, actually, to be honest with you, I did this too. They're not going to do that. And they know that you are. This is why they're setting you up. And trust me, God knows why you're protecting yourself. God saw the whole thing. He didn't just see the blow up or the last couple things that you did. God understands what you're doing. God is not going to punish you for protecting yourself. Remember, narcissists are going to screw up. Their brain doesn't, they're not connected to the right brain. The right brain connects the pieces of the puzzle together. They can't do that. So they never stop and think like, oh, wait a minute, I tricked my aunt in Wisconsin, so now that we're in California, she's going to figure that out and get pissed off. No, it just never even crosses their mind. They play the same game between the two who live in the same bedroom. We talk to each other like, dude, like how dumb can you get? Number one, have faith. They're going to spill the beans on themselves. They're going to screw up. Number two, trust me, God is going to go after them, and God sees what happened. See, another thing you have to realize, God never expected you to be perfect, okay? God knows you have emotions and feelings, etc. You know, here's the thing that God knows. God knows that this person set you up. God knows that this person's been planning and thinking, and how am I going to screw with this person's mind and make them hurt emotionally. God knows this. So look, God understands that you are under duress. And so if you blew your lid and you yelled or cussed, or maybe you even smashed something, God understands why you did it. You were never expected to be perfect, especially under these conditions of call it duress. Life was never meant to be this way. This was not the original creation that God made. This group of fallen angels decided to turn and be like, no, fuck that, I'm doing what I want. And so now they're going around hurting people. And God understands what you're going through, and He's on your side. Now, the law of the land still exists, so if you hurt somebody, you can go to jail. So I'm not giving you permission to do that. What I'm saying is, do your best to get away from these people, number one. Do your best not to do something harsh, okay? If you make a mistake, God is going to understand. That's all I'm saying. Stand up for yourself. Start standing up for yourself. Speak up loudly. Speak up congruently. Just be bold. Be on your own side like you mean it. Protect yourself. The more you stand up for yourself, the easier it gets. I promise you. The more you speak up, the easier it gets. Alright, that's it, guys. God bless you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. That's it. Remember, click subscribe, click the like button, go ahead and make a comment, and if you like, go ahead and make a donation. There's a PayPal donation link right there in the description box beneath the video. Alright guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.